There we go. We're live. We're on. It's just on 12:30 Tuesday. Is it just me, or are you losing track of the days? Like, I'm working Monday to Friday like I normally would. I can't, and I've got meetings in my diary and things to keep up with. I'm completely losing track of what day of the week it is.
Yeah.
Am I alone with that?
No, not at all. I mean, normally when I go on holidays, that's the point that I really start enjoying myself. When I'm like, what day is it? I'm like, oh, I don't know what day it is. Like, that's really exciting. But at the moment, I don't think it's not as exciting. It's just a malaise of being sort of in the quagmire of the corona sort of news cycle.
Yeah. So we're back for another Lunchtime live today. For the few of you that might be tuning in already or catching this on the replay, I'm joined today by Mike Mortlock. Mike, thanks for joining me. You were one of the few that reached out when I first put the message out to say, does anyone want to have a chat of a lunchtime? And you were one of the first ones to put your hand up. So thank you for that. And
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Mike, I've kind of maybe start with where are you? Are you like location wise, but then are you at home? Are you in an office? Where
right now I'm in an office. So I do have a home office, but here in Newcastle at the moment, our team, the majority of the team are still in the office. Mm-hmm. We don't generally have visitors. We don't have customers coming to the door. We've sort of banned all meetings. They're fairly infrequent here anyway. And we've got a relatively big office with relatively few people, so we can distance pretty well. So right now we're majority in the office.
Yep. And would you be in the normal course of business outside of this kind of situation we're all faced with at the moment? Would you normally have people coming to your office to meet with you, or how would you be working?
Sometimes we would. The big difference for me is the travel. I'm normally traveling around quite a bit. So I think technically I'm supposed to be in Melbourne. Last week, I think, was the Accounting Business Expo, which I was going to be a speaker at, and we had a booth there. So that's been cancelled. So a lot of time in the office right now.
Yeah. So you're often on a plane getting around to different conferences and things, are you?
Yeah, different conferences, checking out different referrers that we have, looking at some commercial projects from time to time. It's a big part of what I do, is just getting around the country, because we sort of work across most of it. But it's an opportunity as well. It's great to have chunks of office time, so I'm not complaining too much.
Yeah. Okay. And given the time of day, have you managed to squeeze in lunch yet? And if so, what was on the menu?
Terribly exciting peanut butter toast, which is really it sounds a bit like my sort of isolation food of choice. It's actually fairly typical. I normally have peanut butter toast for lunch any day I'm in the office.
Yeah.
It is kind of funny when you realize your quarantine life is not that different to your to real life. That's just us introverts that are sort of having a chuckle with that, I think.
Yeah, I must say my lunch during the week is the same as what I would normally have. So I normally have a packet of veggies that you kind of microwave packet veggies, microwave packet rice, and a can of tuna. I kind of have that Monday to Friday when I'm in the office, and when I can actually get rice in the supermarket now, the cupboard here is stocked up with it too. So I'm just the same as you. The isolation food is the same as the office food.
Yeah, it's fun.
So how you managing with this kind of isolation that's going on, and distant client meetings and all the rest of it? How's it all going for you?
Yeah, I guess there's a few questions in one, isn't there? Because there's how's the business, it's managing the work, managing the staff, managing family, the psychological, the physical impacts. There's a lot sort of going on. I mean, from the business side of things, it's great that we're still able to be in the office. We're sort of prepared to change that at a moment's notice, and we're being very careful with being in the office. But I mean, that's great that we get to be face to face with the team. For our business, a big part of it is physically inspecting a construction site or an investment property. So that's something that we are in the process of navigating right now, as people are less inclined to want to let people into their homes, for example, like with tenants. We're probably finding at the moment it's less than 2 or 3% of our inspections are impacted by that, but we're working through sort of live conferencing or video ways to do some of these inspections. So that's, I guess, what we're navigating, and also just trying to stay abreast of the government announcements with the stimulus and that sort of stuff, and planning for the worst and just being ready to pivot at a moment's notice on the business model and the way that we operate.
Yeah. So your day-to-day routine then hasn't changed dramatically as yet, but
yeah, not
ready
dramatic.
to if it needs to.
But for most of the staff, it's the same. We just have to be a little bit more cautious and make sure we're doing all the social distancing and following the health directives and that sort of stuff. My day-to-day has changed a little bit more just by virtue of being in the office a lot more, and working on the planning for contingency stuff with the COVID environment that we're in.
Yeah. And you've got I noticed you got the microphone on the wall behind you. Do you have a podcast or something? Like, what do you?
Yeah. We've got a podcast called Geared for Growth. It's a podcast that we created based around property investing. Yep. So the motivation with that was basically for me to put some great information in front of our property investor clients, because most people are still only owning one investment property. So the stats are saying that still, 70 odd people only own one, which I don't think is necessarily enough to create a big change in your finances, your financial freedom, or what you want to set out to do. And I think a lot of that's because people get the first one wrong and they get stuck and they get over it. So just trying to put people in front of experts, so buyers agents and financial planners such as yourself, accountants, economists, and that sort of thing. So yeah, we're still doing that and releasing those fortnightly. So that's a perfect thing to be doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And that's kind of the reason why I started doing this, because everyone's sitting in isolation, hanging out for something new to listen to or to watch, or get some type of routine going. So maybe let's talk a little bit about the work that you do. So talk me through the business as it stands at the moment. What are your different areas that you do that you provide advice or services in?
Yeah. So the business is MCG Quantity Surveyors, and there's two main sort of sections of the business. One is the traditional construction cost estimating side, where we will prepare construction estimates for developers and financiers and builders based on either feasibility or wanting to get an exact idea of the cost for tendering or cost control, including progress claims for banks. So obviously going to site and assessing the works done to site, maintaining a cost to complete. The other side is probably a bit easier to understand. It's the tax depreciation side. So residential property investors, commercial property owners, we prepare reports a bit like a valuer does, that just shows you the deductions that you can claim based on the wear and tear of the building structure and the fixtures and fittings.
Yeah. So that first part of the kind of the first side to the business. So if I was looking at the house next door, for example, I'm at home now, and where I live in Nidri, there's so many knockdown rebuilds going on. But if I was looking at buying the house across the road to put a couple of townhouses on it, would it be your services that I would look to engage to try and help with the feasibility around that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in I guess in concert with a town planner to see what's available and what can be done, an architect or a draftsperson, a quantity surveyor is the best person to say this is actually how much it would cost to build those townhouses, and of course the demolition for the existing property there as well.
Yeah. Okay. And then with the depreciation and all the rest of it, are there particular areas where you find people aren't claiming all that they can? Like, is there a particular theme of where you're getting involved that you're making people aware of something that they weren't aware of previously. Is there anything particular there?
It's not so much a theme of it's more people with houses or more people with units. It's just across the board on all property types. But we're still finding that the message of your depreciation entitlements aren't necessarily getting out there as well as we would like, or as well as investors would be beneficiaries of. So we've crunched some numbers on missed deductions. So we've been doing, I guess, a few different sets of 1,000 residential depreciation schedules where we analyse the data, and we found that 6.7% of people in that sample size had actually missed deductions to the point that it's even too far to backclaim, because you can normally backclaim 2 financial years worth of deductions, but we found that there were 6.7% of people that bought a property so far ago that the 2 years isn't enough to go back. So the average amount of missed deductions was $20,537. That's blown out by certain instances where I think the longest period was 16 years, where someone bought a unit off the plan and they missed just under 70 grand worth of deductions. But that's still a big number. It's a surprising number. And if you extrapolate that 6.7% of our sample size over the whole amount of residential property investors, this is a bit of a clickbait sort of journalist style article, but it's $2.88 billion worth of missed deductions out there. So it's significant.
That'd make a pretty good headline. So how far back can you only go back 2 years in rectifying missed deductions?
Yes. It's normally 2 financial years. Anecdotally, some accountants will say they've been able to go back further if the client was a beneficiary of a trust, or they maybe haven't claimed before. But by a standard rule, you can back claim 2 financial years.
Okay. And then just interesting to see how that work then ties in with the kind of investment property podcast stuff that you're doing. So are you involved at all in the like the property advocacy space or anything like that, or you work with the advocates? Like how does that work for you?
Yeah, like we do work with advocates. So we do have buyers agents that refer business to us, for example. And they're really great because they're at the front end of the transaction. So they're dealing with the investor that's actually acquiring the investment property. So if they are switched on to depreciation, they can introduce the concept to their client at the beginning, so there's no way for them to potentially lose those deductions. So I wouldn't necessarily classify myself as an advocate per se. I am a property investor. I do see the value in property. I'm more educated in property than I am in any other asset class. So I'm pro property, but I don't sell investment properties. So I guess it depends how you define it.
Okay. And the rules around depreciation, they just changed relatively recently, didn't they? About new versus old. Can you maybe spend a couple of minutes talking about what that's like for anyone that doesn't know?
Yeah, so 9th of May 2017, that was when Scott Morrison was our finance minister, or our treasurer rather than our prime minister. He basically said that anyone that bought an investment property after that date would only be able to claim the plant and equipment items if they're buying a brand new property or they're installing the assets in a property themselves. So that could be a 10-year-old property and you're putting in brand new carpet. You can still claim that carpet. So plant and equipment items are generally loose assets within the building rather than the structure. So carpet is an example. So carpet, floor coverings like vinyl and floating timber, and you got blinds, curtains, all the kitchen appliances like your ovens and your cooktops, and then air conditioning, hot water systems, those sorts of things. They're all plant and equipment. So that was a major change that skewed the benefits of tax depreciation to people buying brand new.
And so if I bought an old house, so again, the house next door, if I bought the house next door and it needed new carpet or it needed a new oven or anything like that, I can go and put that in. Obviously, I pay for it, but I can go and put that in, but then claim the full depreciation on that, just as if I'd bought a brand new property.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a couple of little caveats. You've got to be careful if you start to live in the property. So if you bought that property, you put the new assets in, rented it out, and then you moved into the property, you can kill the deductions for the time that it becomes your principal place of residence. But yeah, you either buy it brand new or you put it in brand new in a rental property, and you can claim that plant and equipment.
Okay. Right. I'm learning heaps here too. Not right across all the way the depreciation stuff works. I normally leave that to the accountants and others. So thank you for sharing.
I mean, like I have a habit of ruining barbecues anytime anyone asks me a question. But there's a lot of other things. Like I pay my accountant to make things go away. Because I'm not interested in doing a tax return or an income activity statement. And I think for a lot of people, depreciation is one of those things, and I don't blame them. I know that it's boring. I have to sort of laugh at myself a little bit because it's ridiculous, to try and get people to understand that I'm not too weird a bloke. I say, look, I actually wanted to be a fighter pilot, so don't think that I stood up in kindergarten saying when I grow up I want to be a quantity surveyor. I have to admit, I do enjoy what I do, and I find a way to have fun, even though it's a bit dry.
Yeah, I think you've got to. The financial advisor thing starts to kill the conversation at a barbecue or the kids' birthday parties. You're kind of standing around talking to their parents. Oh, what are you doing? What do you do? And you used to get these people asking you, oh, well, what stock should I buy? Where should I invest my money? That kind of thing. But with the Royal Commission and all the rest of it, it kind of just kills the conversation and quickly move on to something else.
Yeah, or someone will heckle you for saying, "Oh, my auntie Rita was charged for advice and she was dead for 5 years." There was a lot of nasty stuff that came out.
Or those that have a financial advisor, they very quickly let me know that they have a financial advisor or their accountant deals with that kind of stuff. Like I'm at the kid's birthday party or I'm at the barbecue. Like prospecting, trying to find. Like, it's all right, mate. I'm just talking to you. We're just passing the time. So Mike, where can, if anyone needs any of your help or has any questions for you, if you're catching this on the replay or if you're live there, drop a question if you've got anything for us, and I'll get to those in a second. But where can people find you? Where can they reach out to you if they need your help?
Yeah, obviously I'm on LinkedIn, and at times like this, I'll probably be churning out a bit more content, so you can look me up there. If you Google our company, MCG Quantity Surveyors, it's just mcgqs.com.au, or if you just search my name, you'll probably find me somewhere, hopefully not in some Today Tonight scandal. It's all probably pretty good.
And you're... in terms of the depreciation schedules and all of that kind of stuff, it's Australia-wide? It's not just limited to particular areas?
Yeah, no, we're pretty much Australia-wide. I say pretty much because it's very, very difficult for us to get to Broome at the point in time that we're at. So I started this business with my business partner in 2011, and we do work all across the eastern seaboard. We do work in Perth, even though we don't have an office there, and quite active in Adelaide and Canberra and NT. So we get around a bit. If we don't think that we can service it in a timely manner, we've got partners that we can refer to. So yeah, Australia-wide with a little asterisk. Just don't go too crazy with your remote regional stuff.
and so that involves you or a member of your team actually showing up at the property that someone's physically there. Yeah.
Yeah, there are examples where we won't have to do that. So if someone's building a house and they have detailed plans and a schedule of inclusions, we can do that sometimes without an inspection. It's always our preference to do it. So yeah, pretty much the overwhelming majority of our reports will require a physical inspection. So it's a big part of what we do. Yep.
Okay. I would just jump to any questions or comments. We've had a couple there. Emily Wallace, have you come across her on LinkedIn? Given the property space, I'm sure you have. So she is either there now or she was watching at the start. So thanks for tuning in, Emily. And Graham, who's in the Philippines, has been watching these kind of every day. So thanks for popping your head up again, Graham. I've tried something different today. This is going live to LinkedIn as well as my Facebook, but I don't know how to check my Facebook to see if there's any comments or anything there. So who knows? We'll leave it at LinkedIn for the time being. Thanks for joining me, Mike. Was there any final words you wanted to say, or any questions you had for me?
It's a pleasure, mate. I do want to say, with those plant and equipment changes, that I don't want the story to be, well, because of those changes, there's no value in my property anymore. So the plant and equipment was just one side of it. The building structure is the other side. So if you've bought a property built after 1987, you're automatically going to be worthwhile on a depreciation schedule. And if you bought something built prior to 87, but it's had 40 or 50 grand worth of renovations, then that likely is going to make a schedule worthwhile for you as well. So in our analysis of the last 1,000 jobs, which we did at that announcement in 2017, we found that really close to 82 to 83% of them we would still recommend being done. So I was sort of on here sort of saying, the big thing is that people don't have the education, they don't know about it. I've got to be careful in my education. I don't sort of lead people to think that, well, I know more about it, but there's no value in it. In most cases there is. So definitely worth asking. But I wanted to ask, if we do have a second, James, I wanted to sort of ask yourself. You're obviously pretty plugged into a few different businesses, and with the work that you do as a financial planner, what's the sort of sentiment out there that you've come across? What are your clients feeling at the moment?
Just like, given the environment that we're in at the moment.
Yeah. We've done pretty well to not talk about COVID.
Look, it's been interesting, and kind of the financial advisor in me and the numbers. I almost want to create a chart myself of you can really, I really noticed the correlation between the share market going down and how much my phone was ringing Tuesday last week. So Tuesday last week, I'm obviously working from home now, but I spent most of Tuesday last week on the phone, and that was clients calling in. They were longer phone calls than they normally would be, 20 minutes, half an hour. I was probably on the phone with each client, and then often I'd be on the phone and you could hear the beep, beep, beep that someone was leaving a message down the other end on voicemail. That's now completely changed. So a bit more positive news. Stock markets have started to move up, all of those kind of things. So the number of clients that have been calling me has changed, and fortunately, and I think it's partly to do with a lot of the education that we provide with clients, either upfront or just on an ongoing basis. I've only had 2 clients that were worried enough about it all that they wanted to sell their investments,
right?
Whereas everyone else has either held on or have been trying to buy along the way. So that's I find my clients that are invested in the share market, and this is probably applicable to everyone, they're often, and it's just the nature of shares, often kind of quicker to try and react to announcements. And you see that in the share market, all of a sudden there's some bad news and the share market drops. Whereas the property market, people understand that, hey, if there's some bad news today, even if I wanted to, I can't sell my investment property tomorrow morning anyway. So they're much more likely to hold on to those. It'd be interesting to see how things play out in the property space with not many people showing up for open for inspections or showing up for the auctions and those kind of things. The auction clearance rates were pretty low over the weekend, understandably so. But by and large, my clients haven't been terribly worried about it all. They're just trying to be safe with their families and those kind of things, and just holding on for when the good times eventually return.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's positive. It's a very, very tricky time for people to navigate. And I guess the government's recent stimulus package is a positive for employees. So let's hope that gets legislated quickly and go into this hibernation mode of sorts.
Yeah. I think you've got to give the government a bit of credit in what they've done. You can maybe criticise them for being a bit slower to react, given what was going on overseas. But now all of a sudden, it's every day. There's more changes and more changes and more changes. It's almost difficult to keep up with everything that's going on. Whether it's a new stimulus package and the extra $130 billion or so that was announced yesterday, or extra quarantine measures that it was 10 people, now it's 2 people, and you can go and have your hair cut, and now you can't go and have your hair cut, and there's a fair bit to keep up with there, that's for sure.
It's crazy. I'm definitely suffering from the lack of haircuts. You can see this is a pretty expensive setup I've got here. Got to keep this well maintained.
Yeah, I made sure my hair was getting a bit longer than what I'd normally have it. So I went down to one of the local barbers down the road on Saturday, and I said to the guy in there, "Hey, I was surprised he was open. A lot of the other hairdressers around were closed." And I said to him, "Oh, how are you going?" And he said, "Look, we're obviously still open," but he would normally have 5 barbers working of a Saturday. And there was just the 2 of them there, and there was only me having my hair cut, and the other barber was just sitting there doing nothing. So obviously doing it tough, just like a lot of other businesses are at the moment too.
Yeah, a lot of businesses, I think, are disproportionately affected by this. Thankfully, our business is not as affected as many others, which for people in our situation, I guess, be similar with yourself. We just got to look at it as a great opportunity to work on all the things that we wish we normally had time for, and just staying in touch with our clients and giving them relevant information and all that sort of stuff. We're doing a webinar on the sort of impacts of this pandemic and projections for property and the economic outcome on the other side, and just doing what we can to get people the right information and work on the business, and hopefully on the other side we can all do all right.
Yeah, the other big positive to come out of all of this is the speed in which things have changed. Like we've had to, I always did a number of my client meetings via Zoom anyway. Some clients that are interstate or some that are overseas, I did them via Zoom anyway. But this has really pushed it on everyone. So even the clients that enjoyed coming into the city to meet with me, and we'd schedule it either before or after lunch, and they'd go to their favourite restaurant and have lunch either side of coming to see me. We're now pushed all of them to Zoom, and I dare say there's probably a number of them won't go back to the face-to-face meetings. They'll rather stay online. And so the pace at which that's changed, we've had to adjust the business and then push the clients to adopt it. Without this, there's no way that would have happened. So
it's funny, isn't it? It's like, we resist these things and then we're sort of forced to do them. Of course, there's a lot of memes out there at the moment. I saw a funny one that sort of said, we can't possibly afford to, slow down construction or and manufacturing and that sort of stuff to protect the environment with climate change. And then, there's a little comment saying, Mother Nature, here's a virus, practice. It forced us to do things that maybe we should be doing, like I heard just this morning that banks are able to ID individuals without it being face-to-face now. It's, it's taken this pandemic for them to change what is a very sort of old world idea about how things need to be done.
Yeah.
If you think about meetings, they're quite inefficient. You've got to drive somewhere, you've got to park your car. If that's in Sydney CBD, that's maybe a $70 parking ticket. It's completely unnecessary.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be, it sounds like you're as excited as me to see what the world looks like out the other side of all of this, to see where we land.
Yeah, and there'll be a few people that I think would be happy for it to go back the way that it was, like people that are homeschooling their children at the moment.
Yeah.
But there's certainly some things that I think we'll see out of this that'll make us better off. I guess this is a very good test at the science behind generating vaccines and that sort of stuff, which hopefully prepares us for something that may happen that's maybe even more insidious in the future. You just never know.
Yeah. All right, Mike, we're nearly at half an hour here. It's flown by, so I won't keep you too much longer, but thank you for joining me today. Thank you for the few people that have been kind of in and out watching throughout the last half an hour. As I said earlier, if you're catching this on the replay and you've got a question or a comment for either Mike or myself, just leave it below and we'll get back to you. But thanks for joining me, Mike, and on with the rest of the day.
Cheers, James. Thanks. It's been a pleasure.
Mike. See ya.
See ya.